Welcome back to the Charismatic Voice. Your most requested song by Smashing Pumpkins is Mayonnaise. So that's what we're going to check out today. And it is a little surprising. Normally y'all request songs that are in the top 10 most viewed on YouTube for a particular band, and this one is not. So I am very curious why this made it to your top requested. Let's get to it. That's cool. We're going to get into a different sort of sound, I think, right now. And I want to talk a little bit about this intro first. I really love the melodic quality of it. In the guitar, it sounds like really we have like this one particular melody that's kind of noodling around a little. And it feels like somebody's singing it. It's one of the things I like about certain guitar passages when I feel that they could be sung, like maybe the person listening could compose their own words to fit whatever their situation in life is at the time and sing them to that melody. I feel that it just sticks better. It brings more emotion. Maybe this is because I'm just fundamentally such a singer, but when I have a really singable melody, it resonates a little bit more with my heart. So I think it's so beautiful. And I also love the way that this is just so soft. It's sort of fascinating to me to have heard just tonight and heard Billy Corgan now twice, both in Tonight in the music video and in a wonderful acoustic session that he did on the Howard Stern show. Thank you to people who were with me in that live premiere who suggested that. That was a really wonderful performance. Thank you again. And I'm really surprised by how the band, as I've started to know it, can get very loud and have intensity and a certain gnarly edge to it. But then there's this soft, really personal side. And I think that this song begins with this soft, personal touch that's just so lovely. So back to the beginning. You're like, I could lull to sleep with this. And the pitch bends are like soft enough that they feel easy rather than spine tingling. That's an interesting technique. So high. Feels very nostalgic. And now it feels like we just landed somehow, somewhere. I just want to mention one thing, and I'll go back and catch his entrance again. I think that entire first section had that nostalgic quality. And when we had this landing of a lot more heavy and full sound in the instruments, they didn't lose the nostalgia. Instead, it actually felt like it just became more present. You know, like it was always hanging out in the background, maybe the subconscious during that first part. And then all of a sudden, it was just more forward and more urgent nostalgia. I thought it was wonderful that they kept the same tone overall, but shifted the intensity of it. Let's hear some Fantastic singing now. Whoa. We have to talk about several things in here, but I wanted to get a greater feel for the song before we go back and pause it a ton. Let's go back to the intro. I think it was around a minute, right? A little further. There we go. So one of the things that I'm just coming to totally be flabbergasted by is the vocal control that Billy Corgan has. He's able to control which registration he's in, which vocal registration he's in. He's able to really control how much air is in the tone as well, and mix and match these things like crazy. I think it's very important to notice when his tone quality has a certain fluffiness to it, or when it feels more focused and pointed. This signifies very big changes in the vocal tract. And when we talk about technique, being able to move between those things so fluidly and blend them together is like, that's a sign of mastery. And I think that not only does it make his unique, authentic sort of like sound signature stamp, I think it also is something that other artists should aspire to be able to do within their own anatomy. Don't try to sound like Billy Corgan necessarily, unless you're like a cover band specifically going for that. But notice the air and the focus and see if you can incorporate that into your own singing. I'm going to play this for a bit and just listen to that factor alone. Like, just in that phrase, it was such a huge range of air and focus. I think that's so impressive. It's just going from like 10% to 90% on this spectrum in a very short amount of time, but so fluidly. That's very, very impressive to me. Add to that one of the ways he's helping to affect that is he is playing with his registration. And if you heard the analysis that I first did of Smashing Pumpkins, I talked a lot about registration there. Quick review. When we're talking about vocal registers, we're talking about really a combination of tone quality and which muscles are in the driver's seat. So you have your TA, thyroarytenoid, and then you have your CT, cricothyroids. And there are other muscles and things that work in the vocal tract as well to make up singing sound. But these two are thought of as like the primary two that help determine vocal registration. And if the TA is dominant, then you're going to be in register 1, or some people call this chest register, especially if you come from a classical background like I do. And if you're CT dominant, you're going to be in a higher register, and sometimes like just CT, we'll talk more about falsetto. So which one of these muscles, they're almost always combined in some way, unless we really get into falsetto. And which of these is the driver. Which of these is in most control? So 50% or more determines really what register it's in. And that affects the sound a lot because the TA is on the side of the vocal folds. When they go wacka, 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 it's like on the sides over here. It can make those vocal folds a little thicker. We can have a little more full body of the vocal folds coming together. And we tend to get a thicker, more pointed often kind of sound underneath that. And then when you're in a higher register, the CTs are pulling the vocal folds. I always love talking about a rubber band. Think about a rubber band. When you pull it, the bands become a little bit thinner, right? And this makes it so it can vibrate faster, which is useful for higher notes. But also sometimes we'll get a little more air in the sound, but not necessarily. You just listen to an opera singer sing like a belted high C, and you'll hear there's not necessarily a ton of air in the sound, so you can't have very strong and well-connected chords when you're in a higher register as well. But sometimes, especially when we look at falsetto, we'll see that there's a lot more air coming through. So air can be related to registration, but it doesn't have to be. So when you think about this combination of two things, of the air spectrum and also this registration spectrum, which muscles in control, being able to fluidly go along any percentage there is something that singers look to master, and Billy Corgan is doing it so rapidly and frequently. It's just really, really exciting to hear. Back to his entrance. So quite, he shifted a whole bunch with a lot more TA engagement. Similar thing with sorrow there. That's so fluffy. I just thought of a food that reminds me of Billy Corgan. Okay, work with me on this. It's not even like just a food of its own. It's like a thing that you put on other things. Garlic aioli. And maybe I'm thinking of this because mayonnaise, right? Which is actually, turns out the name mayonnaise was a mistranslation, I think, of a previous record. And they thought it was so funny. They held it as a temp for the song, and that just became the song title. Mayonnaise. The song title comes from mistranslation. Okay, but I think his voice to me is like garlic aioli, which I love, because it does often, if it's made really well, there's going to be fluffiness that can be in there, but then you have that like zing of some freshly grated garlic, please, has to be, or freshly pressed. We need that like really nice zing. His voice is like a 3-star Michelin restaurant garlic aioli. You might think that's a terrible comparison, and if you do, tell me in the live premiere what food you would compare his voice to. Let's keep going. That sound is so cool. The guitar sound. Note about that. I was really curious if I would know what this was. I saw that on a note in my prep document that his guitar makes this like weird sound every now and then. They incorporated into Smashing Pumpkin's signature sound. And it's because he had a cheap guitar that made this sound all the time when he, I guess, lifted off from it. And I just think it's so brilliant. They're like, oh, people would normally think that's a bad sound, but we're going to take that and we're going to make it super cool. Because like, listen to it. It's super cool. It's so, I love it. Great idea. Wow, that was great. That was just another example of him using registration perfectly to deliver vocal expression. The goal of any of this technique isn't just to be able to do it. The goal is to free yourself to achieve maximum vocal expression. I don't care how high or how low a person can sing if they can't do it in an expressive way. It's a cool trick. If you can do it in a way that makes me feel something, that's where it really means something. So I think it's really important to learn how to use your voice, how to maximize it to be able to deliver your message. I think that this, right in here, I'll play that section one more time. He uses the registration and the tone quality perfectly. It would have been easier to sing that top note in a different register, by the way. It would have been way easier. But he just let it all come out with lots of TA engagement, which made it feel more urgent, a little bit more just pressing. It has more body to the sound, so it hits our guts a little bit differently. This really sounds like a lot of head voice when it's that fluffy. Oh, man, I missed a good part there. I was saying when he's singing this fluffy lower stuff, it doesn't sound to me like he's fully in falsetto, that it's more head voice, which is more of a mix. It's still CT dominant, but it's not moved into full falsetto, which actually, unless you're in reinforced falsetto, falsetto doesn't have engagement from TA or super, super minimal. So it gets super, super fluffy. But in, I think, his head voice here, again, I'm using classical terminology for registers. In his head voice, he has the ability to let so much of that air in and just like expand it. It almost has falsetto-like qualities. That is a cool lick. Yeah, I love that they leaned into that sound so much. Let's talk a little bit about the lyrics here. I read them through once before hopping into this, and I was impressed by how personal they were, yet how widespread at the same time. It feels like something that was coming directly from his heart, but the way that things were phrased, the way the lyrics are phrased, it doesn't feel like it's so specific to a particular situation. It feels like it's a widespread feeling that lots of people can have in lots of different circumstances. I like that kind of lyric writing a lot because I personally think that it's best to relate to many, many people. Even though sometimes the very specific story is what's going to do that, I think usually broader lyrics are going to be a little more relatable. What was it? Try to understand. I want to go back to that part right there. Oh, yeah. Oh, instrumental interlude. Sorry, can't get there yet. Try to understand the way I am. I love that this whole song essentially feels like it's soul searching. And there's a lot of moments in these lyrics where you get an idea that it's a person that is trying so much to grow. One of my goals in life is just personal growth. I think that it's so important. And when you're growing, that you can be told something and not be ready to accept it in so many circumstances. And I feel that this is talking about how a person wants to grow and wants to achieve something, but for some reason, they might just not be ready to understand it yet. It's kind of like when you see your best friend going through the dumps and just stuck in a situation that you know is hopeless or horrible, and they know it too, but for some reason they're just not ready to leave it. You can give them all the good advice, but they have to get to a point to where they're ready to accept that good advice or ready to move out. Just so hard to see. But I love this. And I fail, but when I can, I will. That's really what made me think about this amazing sort of personal evolution that people have through life. It's so beautiful. And try to understand that when I can, I will. I think those lyrics are really important. It's not only is it super personal, it also helps us to respect others and the struggles that they're going through and know that what they learn from those struggles, they need to go through it. They need to learn. They need to take their journey and get there. They can't just automatically jump to the next stage. One last thing, as we're listening to this instrumental part that's coming up, I'm actually really curious in live premiere right now. If you want to share something that, like a piece of good advice, either that you've been given a million times and you've never really understood, or that you were given a million times and maybe just recently, for the first time, understood, I'd be really curious what lessons are out there that are wonderful lessons all around us that maybe just take time to finally embody in ourselves. I'd love to hear from you what those lessons are. Let's keep going through this instrumental part now, which I think is just instruments. I love the sweeping sounds that are in this part. There's like a whoosh that happens every now and then. I wish I had better words to describe it, but my sound effect was on point. It almost sounds like we're swept into it. Like a rocket is taking off. Wow. That was so beautiful. It's delicate, yet has this underlying strength there at the same time. It's almost like just a piece of really strong thread. So there are times when his voice approaches this like whiny quality, right? And I think that so many singers would move away from that because they would consider, oh, that's like an ugly sound. I like the way that instead he plays with it. It's the same idea behind this awesome guitar sound. This idea of music is sound, it's organized sound. How can we play with these amazing sounds available to us and make them part of this bigger picture? I think it's really clever, and it shows an amazing, open, creative mind.
Shut my mouth and strike the demons. Cursed you and your reasons. Out of hand and out of season. Out of love and out of feeling. So bad.
Like, not only do they think this is a cool sound and bring it into their song, they feature it by dropping all the other instruments out underneath it. It's like the bottom of the song falls out and they're like, hey, this sound that people thought was a bad sound, we're going to make it good. I just realized this sound reminds me of something from Beethoven's Surprise Symphony. If you're a classical nerd, you know what I mean. It has like these moments where it's like, ha ha, I gotcha. So this is the contemporary version of Beethoven's Surprise Symphony. The phrasing here and the build is really nice. That is awesome. That is really awesome. I feel like this is one of those fundamental screams of Smashing Pumpkins. I just want to be me. I love how that was set. I love how he built up to that, sang it, and had that strength in the voice. There's even more roundness in the tone than there has been in other places where he's had really high, I would say thicker in the vocal folds notes. This is a wonderful climax to the song and on point. What a good goal. Yes. Oh. Oh. Is this the end? We're going. This song gives me the feels. It makes me want to be a better person and continually strive. It feels so supportive and engaging. And I love that huge climax at the end and then the way it wound down and got back to this like super, like almost precious tone quality. Oh, it was just so wonderful. I'm going to listen to it again right away. Thank you everyone for this recommendation. You guys nailed it. This was a wonderful song, and hit me up with some more recommendations for Smashing Pumpkins, please. I really want to explore their work a lot more. I'm so impressed by Billy Corgan. If you want to see some other songs that were your top recommendations analyzed, check out this playlist over here. May you fall more in love with music every day.